And the first thing he does is walk right on by the really crowded, bustling inn, and then he goes down the street to an inn called the Fox, which is kind of like a seedier looking place.
Yeah, this would be your this would be your local watering hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like not the place where then all the tourists are going, but like the place where your locals are going to drink their problems away. Like I lost my foot because I have gangrene and we don't have doctors here, so I'm gonna go drink at this bar.
So it's basically a Chili's, just so we're clear.
It's a Chili's. It's a Chili's next to a Barnes
Right
and Noble.
next to a Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. So, Geralt sees the fancy like local cuisine, 4 stars, and he goes, "No." And then he goes right on by into the Chili's, and he walks up and he orders a beer. I think it's also very interesting that so he goes into this place called the Fox, this inn of ill repute, and he orders a beer. And the first time that we are given a description of his voice, it is described as unpleasant.
Which is funny because as someone who had played enough of the games to like know the voice actor, like it's really hard to get the visual picture of Geralt and his voice out of your head as you're reading. So like, and I don't consider that unpleasant. He's just kind of down here a lot.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like John Winchester in the comic books.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's got dust in all his pockets. So yeah, he walks up, he orders a beer in his unpleasant voice, and
we just jump right in on how everybody is racist against Rivians.
So, yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, Rivian,
fucking
blah."
Rivians. It's funny because later on it feels like everybody hates him because he's a Witcher. Like that's how it's always presented in the books, or rather in the games. And I don't know if it's because like that's just like an easier thing to digest if you are like in on the lore. But yeah, like boom, right away, like, oh, this fucking Rivian. They're just immediately racist. They hate him because of his accent. I guess they don't like the way he looks. He's described as first of all, they're just calling him the stranger and the outsider here. He's not the Witcher or Geralt yet. But it says the stranger was not old, but his hair was almost entirely white. Beneath his coat, he wore a worn leather jerkin laced up at the neck and shoulders. And somewhere further on, it talks about how he wears his sword, not 2 swords, by the way, just the sword, on his back. And how it's not unusual for people to be carrying swords. They established that this world is full of, people who would be carrying weapons with good reason. But for a man to be wearing a sword on his back like that, like as a bow or a quiver or something, seems to stick out a lot more.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I really like it's a real striking image, and you don't really think about it until you think of you just don't think about dudes wearing swords like this very often because it seems like it would be, I'm going to say 1,000% impossible to sheathe your sword, like because you're gonna have to hold it like 19,000. Like, are his arms elastic? Is that what's happening?
He actually describes some of the weird shit that he does, like with the strap that he has the sheath on, where he like pulls it and like does different stuff to like get the sword in and out, which I guess is just supposed to go to show
cool.
how
I like that.
He's prepared. He knows what he's doing. But yeah, so we have this white-haired man, and they say repeatedly throughout, it's like he's got like full-on white hair, but he's not old. Everybody, he's still young, he's still hot. Like, don't get it twisted. He just has cool white hair. But he goes up, he orders a beer. He tries to get a room at the inn, and they're like, no, go stay at the inn down the road. Like, we don't have room here. And he's like, but I'll pay you. Like, come on, like, hook me up. And it's not long before people are like, hey, get this fucking shithead Rivian out of here.
Yeah, him and his big wolf medallion.
Yeah, him and his big, hot, sexy wolf, but get him out of here. I don't like it.
Chris, what is wrong with Rivians? Can you give us some background on that? I feel like
they're just
we didn't really talk about a spoiler thing for this, but like I don't think we'll spoil like major plot points from the game. But like I am going to need you to color some of this in for me at some places. So
Rivia
and kind of use your best judgment as far as what's a spoiler and what's not.
I can probably fill in more of the Rivia stuff later on, but it's just a different place. And it
so it's okay.
There are a lot of different like factions and kind of countries that speak similar languages, but they're all like a little bit different. There's several different kings, and everybody's sort of almost always at war, but like maybe not quite. But it's just it's a very rundown world, and it's a world where seemingly the monsters are not the worst of the problems. Everybody is sort of xenophobic and doesn't want outsiders coming in, and that is exactly what Geralt is. He very much represents the outsider in like every way, shape, or form. Even the way he looks and the way he carries his sword is different and weird.
Obviously we'll get to this probably in later books and not just in the first 2 chapters of this book, but the Wikipedia like kind of blows it and is like, oh, by the way, he's not actually from Rivia. He's just pretending.
He is 100% just pretending to be from Rivia, yeah.
Like, why would you be like, I'm going to find, like, the one group that people are super racist against, learn their accent, and pretend to be them?
I know that
just make it a little tougher.
There is a point where he was given the title of Rivia, but I guess we'll get to that at a certain point. But yeah, now these ruffians at the bar, they see this outsider, this freaky-looking dude with his weird sword and everything, and they don't like him. They want him to leave, and they tell him as much. They tell him he's a Rivian, and they're all sneaky, and he needs to just pay and get out of here. But Geralt insists that he's going to stay and finish his beer, which of course indicates to everybody involved that shit's about to go down.
Yeah, and this is this was kind of surprising to me because I know, again, coming from the video games, like I know The Witcher isn't just an immediately violent person, but like they start kind of getting rough with him, and he just immediately fucks these guys up with his sword. Yeah. Like there's no hesitation, and I was like, does he know that these guys are bad already? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, it's intense, and it really sets an interesting tone for Geralt, because you think, okay, here's this super violent dude. This is how he's going to handle everything. This is going to be the tone of how he deals with everything. But spoilers for the rest of this podcast, I think this is his only body for the entire next 2 chapters, despite all the things that he faces. This is the only thing that Geralt himself technically kills. And by thing, I mean this dude. But yeah.
This poor footless man who's just in here trying to drown his sorrows.
He didn't kill any monsters. He just killed some townspeople.
One dude. It's interesting that it's always... whenever he draws his sword, it's always described as hissing out of its sheath. It makes it seem like he's this viperous type of person, this menacing individual, and he is. But they start roughing him up, or getting in his face. Somebody pulls back a fist to punch him. Geralt dodges out of the way. That sword comes hissing out, and he just cuts the dude down. And the ensuing like carnage, I guess, it's just the one dude that he cuts down, as far as I'm aware. And it's ugly. Like there's a woman screaming, and everybody is like freaking out. It doesn't. Once the deed is done, it doesn't necessarily make him seem like a cool action hero. It's just like, oh, what the okay, all right, you overreacted. And I think having played the video game, it almost is like you're desensitized to like a dude being hyper violent all the time. But to just like roll up into a bar, we're like, yeah, they're being dicks, but like you don't just fucking kill them.
They didn't even have like they rolled up with like leather cudgels to like try to fight him with. Like they didn't even have. I mean, it's unlike an actual Chili's. They're not used to people pulling swords and waving them around.
They usually ask me to leave as well, so that part checks out.